husbands braving who could be their most challenging house guest yet. Take My Mother-in-Law here on ITV1 later tonight at 9:45. But back to this morning, and it's GMTV.
Born in France, educated in Britain, now an American jury will decide if the fifth 9/11 hijacker is to be executed. Good morning, this is the News Hour on GMTV.
Yes, it's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 4th of April, 2006. Yes, on the programme this morning, the British-educated Zacharias Moussaoui claims he was due to fly a hijacked plane into the White House. An American jury now has to decide if he should get life or the death penalty. We'll have reaction from the mother of one of the British victims of 9/11.
Also this hour, the measles outbreak that has claimed its first victim in 14 years. Our fears over the safety of the MMR jab, leaving the country vulnerable to an epidemic. And
after past, the X-ray image that left a vet completely speechless. But you can guess what a dog managed to wolf down. More on that in about 40 minutes' time.
But first, Andrea has the weather picture.
Good morning. Good morning. A few showers around this morning, mainly across the north and east of Scotland, where again they're remaining quite wintry. Some sharp showers too for East Anglia and North East England. Elsewhere, most places waking up cold but bright. Some thin high cloud across parts of Wales and the southwest, and that's where it's going to be quite windy through today. Not much changes through this afternoon. Temperatures, I think, will be on the fresh side because it is so windy, especially across the southwest. I'll give you more details though in around 20 minutes or so.
Thanks very much indeed. As I indicated, the British-educated man who claims to be the fifth 9/11 hijacker can be executed if found guilty of the crime. A jury will reconvene this week to decide the fate of Zacharias Moussaoui, the only person to be charged over the September the 11th attacks. In a moment, we'll be hearing from Sue Jameson, who's outside the Finsbury Park Mosque, where this man worshipped, apparently. But first to Cordelia Kretschmar in New York. Cordelia, very good morning to you. So the only question now is whether he lives or gets life imprisonment.
That's right. Yesterday, a jury decided unanimously that he should be eligible for execution. Now they just have to decide whether he deserves it. Zacharias Moussaoui's evidence was thought to meet several key conditions, most notably that when he lied to the FBI, he in fact caused directly the deaths of at least one of those people who died in the attacks of 9/11. When he heard the jury's outcome yesterday, Moussaoui himself stood up in court and shouted, "You'll never get my blood. God curse you." So this is a boost to the federal prosecutors, whose case looked like it was going to be derailed some time back when one of the lawyers was accused of coaching a witness. Where did Moussaoui in fact go wrong? It looks like when he went against the advice of his own lawyers, stood up in court this week and claimed that he and the would-be shoe bomber Richard Reid had intended to hijack a fifth plane on September the 11th and fly it into the White House. So, on Thursday, the jury will resume deliberations to decide whether he in fact should receive the death penalty or just life in prison. As part of that, they'll hear from families of the victims of 9/11, and their job will be to give some idea of the human impact of those attacks.
Well, as I indicated, we'll be hearing from the mother of one of the British victims a little bit later in the programme. Meantime, let me tell you, Moussaoui's journey into radicalism began here in Britain in the 1990s. He studied in London and worshipped at the Finsbury Park Mosque, and where Sue Jameson reports for us this morning. Sue.
Yes, good morning. Well, he did have a very long association with London. Though Moussaoui was born in southwest France, he came here and lived in London on and off for around 9 years. He graduated in 1997 from the South Bank University with a master's degree, but it was at that time he was also attending worships here at the Finsbury Park Mosque, at a time, of course, that it was much more associated with extremism. We must remember that it's Abu Hamza, the radical cleric, who was preaching here, and this was also a place that the convicted shoe bomber Richard Reid attended. And as Cordelia was saying, it was really one of the things that stunned the court when Moussaoui said that he and Richard Reid had planned to hijack this fifth plane and send it into the White House. So he will hear perhaps later this week whether he is to live or die. Back to you.
Sue, for the time being, thanks very much indeed.
Now let's get this morning's other news stories from Amanda.
Gloria, thank you. Good morning. Fears are growing that an epidemic of measles may be about to strike. There have been 100 cases of the disease already this year. That's compared to 77 in the whole of 2005. One 13-year-old boy has died, the first fatality from measles in 14 years. 6 nurses have also been treated in London. Patients in America have become the first in the world to receive organs grown from their own cells in a lab. 7 people have now had bladders transplanted successfully. Scientists in North Carolina made the breakthrough, which could now lead to the development of organs like hearts and lungs for transplant. The mother of a hit-and-run victim has condemned the sentence handed out to the killer. Jaswinder Singh was given 18 months for killing a medical student in Birmingham. Here's Aruj Dafwicha.
This is the shocking image of 20-year-old Abigail Crane as she lay dead in hospital. Her mother, Susan, took the harrowing decision to release this photo to force the hit-and-run driver who killed her to come forward. Jaswinder Singh was jailed for 18 months at Birmingham Crown Court. Singh had previously been banned from the roads for drink driving. Abigail's mother says the sentence is an insult to her daughter's memory.
This sentence is an insult to her. She's dead, and our lives have been desolated.
There are reports this morning that West Midlands Police are so disappointed with the sentence that they plan to write to the Crown Prosecution Service. Singh could be out of jail in 4 months because of the amount of time he's already served in custody.
Aruj Dafwicha reporting. Storms and tornadoes have killed at least 27 people in America's Midwest. In Arkansas, dozens of people were injured when a tornado hit the northeastern part of the state. The worst damage occurred along a 25-mile swathe of rural Tennessee. One of America's largest military planes, the C-5 Galaxy, has crashed in spectacular fashion. The cargo plane developed mechanical failure shortly after takeoff from an Air Force base in Delaware. All 17 crew members survived the landing despite the enormous structural damage caused. The author of the controversial pensions report that's divided Downing Street and the Treasury is today expected to defend his call for a more generous state pension funded by higher taxes. Lord Turner will again highlight the restoration of the link between old age pensions and earnings. That would mean a rise in the state pension. More women are choosing to give birth at home. The latest figures show home births rose by 7% in 2004. Wales has the highest rate of women opting out of hospital childbirth. On to showbiz news now, and TV stars Ant and Dec have taken their first steps from the small screen to the big screen. Fans and celebrities turned out at London's Leicester Square last night to cheer them on at the premiere of their first film, Alien Autopsy. The movie will be beamed into UK cinemas on Friday. And the time is now 7 minutes past 6. I'm back at 5:30. Here's John and Gloria.
Thanks very much, Amanda. Let's take a look at the morning papers. I'll kick off with the tabloids. The Express has a story saying that there's a crisis in our prisons, running out of control in terms of numbers. Tens of thousands more criminals will have to be freed early or spared jail altogether, says their report. Daily Star has an interesting story. You may remember a life swap contestant called Lizzie Bardsley. She appeared on this programme and attracted a great deal of controversy. Well, last night, apparently, according to the Star, in this exclusive report, she was charged with 10 counts of child cruelty. The Daily Mail and the rest of the tabloids lead on the tragic story of the child who was killed by a hit-and-run driver, and that same person was jailed for just 18 months. Considerable outrage at that. This insult to our girl's life is a headline in the Mail. 9 months for murder is the headline in the Sun and the Daily Mirror. An insult to Abigail.
Thanks, John. And a look at the broadsheets. We mentioned this story in the news, the bladder grown in the laboratory, which is set to transform transplant surgery. The fate of the Prime Minister continues in The Times and The Telegraph. In The Times, in their poll, they say that almost half of voters want the Prime Minister to go either now or by the end of the year. But interestingly, 33% want him to stay on until the next election, and he is still popular with Labour voters. You don't normally think that's about Tony Blair. So how long will he stay? Well, the Daily Telegraph, if you remember, he wanted to serve a full a third term, but the Daily Telegraph now saying that he stakes claim for 2 more years at number 10.
OK, as we heard in the news, our fears are now growing that an epidemic of measles may be about to strike. One 13-year-old boy has already died, the first fatality from the disease in some 14 years. Rachel Harrison is outside the Central Middlesex Hospital in North London, where 6 nurses have been treated for the disease as well. Rachel, what can you tell us?
Yes, good morning, John. Well, they caught the measles from 2 young patients they were treating. One of whom was actually treated in A&E. Once it was diagnosed, all 6 nurses were immediately put into isolation. They've been treated and they've been sent home and are all said to be recovering. But clearly this has problems for a hospital of this size. They are worried about a further outbreak. They've had to take extra precautions, which include vaccinating some staff. And certainly anyone who's been treated here over the last 2 weeks has been told if you start suffering from measles-type symptoms, you must contact your doctor immediately. But this isn't the only outbreak. There's been an outbreak in southwest Scotland where 8 people have been struck down with the measles, and as you said, we've seen the first case this year of a 13-year-old boy who died. That's the first death from measles since 1992, and there are concerns that we are looking at an epidemic, particularly because if you look at the stats, we've seen 100 cases of measles so far this year. Compare that to 2005 when we only actually saw 77 cases. Now, although the majority of the cases that we've seen this year have come from people from the travelling community, there are fears that we're looking at an epidemic based on the fact that people are not getting their children vaccinated with the MMR jab due to fears over autism.
Rachel, for the time being, thanks very much indeed. Dr. Hillary joins us now here on the sofa. At the point I was just going to pick up myself, Hillary, is this, do we think, the result of people not having their children inoculated because of the fear and controversy that surrounded the inoculation some time ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think this largely explains what's happening now. If people aren't immunised, then, you know, they've only got to come into contact with somebody who is carrying the virus and they'll pick it up very, very easily. It's a very contagious virus. So the less people who are inoculated, the more chance of an epidemic occurring.
Can you really control an outbreak like this?
Yes, you can. You know, if you look at it, the vast majority of people are immunised, and it's a pool of a smaller number of people who aren't. So if you can contain those people who are infectious, then, you know, you've always got the hope that you will contain the epidemic. But when you've got an extremely contagious virus, you've got growing numbers of people who are obviously showing symptoms from different parts of the country, you start to worry. And
when it's in a hospital, where people obviously have to be, you know, close together, I imagine it's even more difficult.
Well, in many ways, hospitals are the worst place to have somebody with measles because of that very reason. Yes, you want to isolate people, but usually you can isolate people with measles at home so that people in hospitals who are already sick are protected. But of course, people aren't familiar with the symptoms of measles anymore. We haven't had a big outbreak of measles for many years, so people won't necessarily be aware of what the symptoms are. So they'll go to a hospital feeling unwell, feeling feverish, having a blotchy rash on their face, pouring nose, maybe a nasty cough, maybe the complications of pneumonia or ear infections. They go to hospital, that they may be admitted, and by that time the virus has spread in the hospital community, and that's the danger.
So just briefly, talk of an epidemic premature?
We've been talking of an epidemic in theory for many years, and that's always been the risk with the MMR rate being as low as it has been. So I think there is a real risk, and the risk is growing year on year. Now we're seeing sporadic cases around the country, and we're seeing so many more cases in the early part of this year compared to the whole of last year, then I think we've got cause to worry. So yes, possibly, these things are very difficult to contain once they've started.
We're going to leave it there for the time being. Thanks very much.
Thanks, John.
It's 6:13. This week, GMTV is giving you the chance to have your say on where more than £1 million in lottery money is spent. That's because we've teamed up with the Big Lottery Fund and the National Lottery. 3 separate projects have been shortlisted, and GMTV viewers will now decide who gets the money. Well, Jonathan Swain is in Merseyside this morning with one project that hopes to improve facilities for youngsters. Morning, Jonathan. Tell us more.
Morning to you, Gloria. Well, it's no wonder kids hang around street corners getting up to no good if this is the only sports facility that's on offer. Look here, we've got a very tatty basketball ring, we've got a wire fence which doubles up as a football goal, we've got a very dodgy surface, lots of potholes underfoot, so better watch where I walk in this morning. Well, it's former mining communities like this want to use lottery cash, want you to vote for their scheme, which would help to improve sports facilities. Just take a look at how they'd spend the money.
The GMTV award would be used to build up to 6 multi-use games areas throughout locations in the UK. the one benefit is that during the summer months it's great because kids can go out and play on fields and play sport, but during the winter months there's nowhere for the kids to go after school and the gates are shut. And if you've got a multi-use games area, you can actually get kids off the streets into structured sport and structured physical activity, and hopefully that might have a positive impact in reducing antisocial behaviour in these communities.
Without facilities like this, you may be struggling to find the sportsmen for the future.
Leeds United, Sheffield United, we have players that start with us at under 10s that go through to their academies and go on to professional clubs.
One of our hopes is that we might in the 2012 Olympics see some of the kids that have actually benefited from the money that's been used.
It's not just about producing sports stars of the future, it's about giving children something to do in areas like this which really have very little. Well, with me this morning is Joanne Baldwin, who you saw briefly there in the film. She represents a charity which helps people in former mining communities. Joanne, just explain, people around here don't really have a great deal to do they, in communities like this?
No, as you've seen in the VT and obviously here at Clockface, there isn't a lot for the children to do. The land is well used 7 days a week, but there's just not enough for them to do day and night, really.
So what kind of facilities would you provide then, or hope to provide?
UK Play is going to provide 6 multi-use games areas in 6 locations in the UK, and that means that kids are going to be able to enjoy sport and physical activity 12 months of the year, because the multi-use games area will be floodlit. So once the sun goes down and the school gates are shut, it gives kids something to do, something like structured sport and physical activity.
We may see an Olympic star in the future, a sports star in the future, you never know.
We may do, yes.
All right, thank you very much. And Gloria, I know that you're going to chat to somebody who's done rather well for himself on the sporting front.
Indeed, that's a very worthy cause, Jonathan. Thank you very much. And we'll be looking at 2 more projects tomorrow and on Thursday, where we'll explain how you get to pick where the money goes. You can find the details of all 3 bids on our website, gm.tv.
16 minutes past 6, you're watching the News Hour here on GMTV, and these are the headlines you're waking up to this morning. Zacarias Moussaoui, the only person to be charged in America over the September the 11th attacks, is 1 step closer to the death penalty this morning.
And there are fears that a measles epidemic could be on the way as the number of cases of the disease soars.
And Ant and Dec make the move from the small screen to the big screen in their debut film, Alien Autopsy. As I indicated a moment ago, a man who lived in Britain for 9 years and gained a master's degree at London University is 1 step closer to the death penalty in America. After 17 hours of deliberation, a US jury decided Zacarias Moussaoui, the only person ever to be charged in America over the World Trade Center attacks on September the 11th, is eligible to face execution. Here's how the story was reported on American television last night.
Elizabeth Vargas. Tonight, the jury says Zacarias Moussaoui can be killed for his role in 9/11. Now, survivors and families will have their say.
Zacarias Moussaoui, the only person in this country charged in connection with the 9/11 attacks, finds himself 1 step closer to the death penalty tonight.
Life or death, a dramatic jury decision in the death penalty trial for Zacarias Moussaoui.
Well, I'm joined here in London now by Patricia Bingley, whose only son, Kevin, died in the attacks on the World Trade Center on September the 11th. Patricia, thanks very much indeed for being with us. Some people might imagine that while this trial was going on, you'd want to distance yourself from all of this, but I gather that's not the case. You've been watching this very closely, is that right?
Oh, yes. I've taken a great interest in everything, actually, that's gone on in America since 9/11, about 9/11. And I get all the emails over from Doyle's in America, and I've kept up to date with this trial. And now we've finally, he was brought to court, and I'm, quite relieved, really, that he's either going to get the death penalty or get life.
This process of actually watching every twist and turn of this case has helped you, has it?
Yes, it does help me a great deal. I know my son would have wanted me to do this, and I feel like I have to do it. I just have to do it. It just keeps me going, really. I just, to be able to be involved in some small way, because I do reply, I do sign petitions for America, and that is it.
What have you learned from this trial? What sort of man has emerged? What sort of person do you think Moussaoui is, having looked at the evidence against him?
Well, I do believe that he was in the plan for the World Trade Center. He as he said, he didn't know all of the details, but then again, I suppose none of them knew all of the details. But he told the court that he knew all about the plan, and if he hadn't have been picked up at the aviation centre, I think that he would have been a terrorist that had gone into the trade centre and killed thousands of people.
Well, he wasn't picked up in this country either, was he? Because he studied here. He went to the mosque in North London that's featured so prominently in these events. What's your view about that?
Well, I just don't, I don't understand it at all. I mean, I just, there's such a lot has happened. I mean, a lot has happened in America as well as in England with these terrorists and how they've got through all these things. I mean, when you read all the evidence, even before 9/11, of them planning to fly planes into buildings, and they'd been picked up and then they'd been dropped. If all of the evidence, if they'd have really gone hard into all of the evidence, if they'd have gone as hard as they did with Iraq, if they'd have done it with Afghanistan and just carried on and gone for bin Laden and the Al-Qaeda network, I really do believe that with all the evidence as well that they had, all the pieces, they'd have got together and put them all together and really got down to defending their country and looking into it all. Perhaps, just perhaps, 9/11 wouldn't have happened.
Does it matter to you whether he's executed or gets life imprisonment?
I have no feelings for him at all. I wouldn't even waste my feelings on him. He can get life or he can be killed, and I don't care which way it is, because if he gets life, then I just hope it's solitary confinement for the rest of his natural life. And I don't want to even think about him, really. I'm just glad that they have at least caught one of the terrorists of 9/11, but it wouldn't be, it's not a closure for me. I wanted bin Laden caught. That would have been justice for me. And I just will never understand why they didn't carry on into Afghanistan and go after Al-Qaeda network and bin Laden.
I'm sure a lot of people share your thoughts and your sentiments. Thanks very much indeed for being with us, Patricia.
You're welcome.
It's 6:21, still to come on the News Hour, the latest weather picture from the lovely Andrea.
Yes, and we're going to be live to America to see some amazing weather pictures of tornadoes sweeping right through the United States.
At least 27 people are dead after 63 tornadoes steamroll the American Midwest. What could possibly be more terrifying than winds that intense? Try hailstones as big as this grapefruit. More in a moment.
I'm alive, but I'm not here. Future lives in the past. I'm lost until I'm alive, but I'm not here.
How you came to be the only person to get off that boat alive. Sole survivor.
People now on this boat changing right before my eyes.
All happening again.
He's gonna kill us all!
You can never lay the past to rest until the truth has been told.
Ghost Boat, Sunday at 9, ITV1.
So check there for 8,531,900,900.
When you hit the jackpot, dreams can come true.
I love it.
They've created nearly 2,000 millionaires, but now for the first time...
This is where it all happens.
Camelot open their doors for an exclusive look at life behind the lottery.
Doesn't happen to people like us.
And what the winners do with their millions. I've Won the Lottery next Tuesday at 8 on ITV1.
Hailstones the size of grapefruits and homes ripped from their foundations. Large parts of America have been hit by violent storms and tornadoes. At least 27 people are dead, and that figure is expected to rise. Cordelia Kretschmar is in New York. Cordelia, what's the latest?
Good morning. Yeah, as you just mentioned, that death toll, I'm afraid, this morning set to rise as state troopers with dogs resume their search at first light for the victims. They're going to be picking through completely obliterated brick buildings and trailers. Just to give you a kind of idea of the scale of the devastation, in Tennessee alone, the trail of destruction is more than 20 miles long, and Tennessee, just one of 8 states hit. Have a look at this. They call it Tornado Alley. Yesterday morning, the American Midwest felt more like a 4-lane highway for twisters. In Dyer County, Tennessee, Kathy Riddick's farmhouse is nowhere to be seen.
It took it within 15 seconds. It was over within 15 seconds. The whole house was gone.
At least 27 people were killed when 63 tornadoes struck an 8-state area overnight. One storm was almost a mile wide, leaving the deepest and deadliest scars in western Tennessee.
All we have right now is the clothes on our back, but we have our lives. Some people were not as fortunate as us in this.
In Tennessee, at least 23 people were killed, including a baby, when their houses exploded in the wind. One person died when this clothes shop collapsed in Illinois.
People were screaming, there's people on the ground everywhere.
Hundreds ran for shelter as storms swept through a free concert in Indianapolis, shattering several buildings there. Along with the raging winds, several areas were pummeled by hailstones the size of grapefruits. But in Kentucky, it was the intense wind that left the strongest mark.
It just carried us about 25 feet or something from the kitchen to the outside, and we fell off the porch area, and it's amazing that none of us get killed.
On a night when more than 24 did not survive. So a very ominous start to the tornado season here in America. Just to give you an idea of the power of these things, a Category 5 hurricane can inflict damage described as severe. A tornado, they describe the damage done by that as total. There have been 350 so far this year compared to just 110 last year, 4 times the normal number, and the tornado season isn't really expected to get going until May. Then, of course, the hurricane season starts.
Cordelia, thanks very much.
Let's find out the weather picture here in the UK. Here's Andrea.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Nestlé Cereals. Whole grain for the whole family every morning.
Hello there, good morning. The weather much more settled across the UK. You can see on the overnight radar picture we do have some showers across the north and east of Scotland. They're still fairly wintry at the moment. It's very cold across many parts, but particularly so across Scotland. We've also got an area of rain just nudging into the southwest. You can see it there just pushing into the southwest of the Republic of Ireland. If we add on the cloud, what you can see is this is where the majority of the rain is. This is where we're seeing rather more wintry conditions. Some showers too across more eastern parts into northeastern England, right the way down into East Anglia. Away from that, some areas starting off fine, dry and bright. You saw the cloud, though, across the south and west. Let's take a look and see what's happening for this afternoon. We'll still continue to see those snow showers just across the Shetland Isles, across the Highlands, maybe moving as far south into more central regions of Scotland. But if I just move out the way, you can see more in the way of sunshine for western parts of Scotland and more southern regions moving down towards the borders. Not too bad a day in terms of actual weather, but it will feel fairly chilly. Similar story for Northern Ireland. Nothing really to write home about weather-wise. Some cloud around, mainly dry. You can see these showers just starting to feed in across more eastern areas, right the way to northeastern England, down into East Anglia. If we move out the way, you can see, generally speaking, not a bad day for Wales and the Midlands. 1 or 2 of these showers managing to edge in, perhaps around Oxfordshire, that sort of region. But most places should escape the worst of that, should see some sunshine. Highs of maybe around 11 degrees, but it probably won't feel like it here in the southwest. Although this is going to be the mildest region today, it will feel cooler than the chart suggests because it is fairly windy. Now, a cold night expected tonight. Again, we'll continue to see some cloud cover and 1 or 2 showers across the far north and west, and also the northeast across the Shetland Isles. Elsewhere, clearer skies leading to dropping temperatures, most places dropping down to below freezing. And as you can see, it's a bit of a north-south divide weather-wise for tomorrow. More northern regions, that's Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of northern England, seeing much more in the way of cloud than we're seeing today. Anywhere south of that, drier, brighter, and all the temperatures pretty similar to today because the winds won't be as strong. It will feel a touch more pleasant. Here's your summary.
For your in-depth local outlook, visit our website, gm.tv, or for a 10-day forecast, call GMTV's Weatherline on 0905 514 0000.
Good morning. It is 6:28 on Tuesday, the 4th of April.
Yes, you're watching the news hour here on GMTV. In the next half hour, more fuel on the fire of Britain's pensions crisis. Is it time to raise taxes to pay for our retirement?
And she may have needed more iron in her diet, but that's just ridiculous. We'll be hearing about Deezer the dog's amazing story in 20 minutes. But first, the British-educated man who claims to be the fifth 9/11 hijacker is a step closer to being executed. A jury will reconvene this week to decide the fate of Zacarias Moussaoui, the only person to be charged over the September 11th attacks in America. His journey into radicalism began in Britain. He worshipped at the Finsbury Park Mosque, where Sue Jameson is for us this morning. So,
yes, good morning. Moussaoui had a very long association with London. In fact, he lived here on and off for 9 years. He graduated from the South Bank University in 1997 with a master's degree. And of course, he worshipped at this mosque. At a time, it was much more associated with extremism. This is, after all, where Abu Hamza preached. It was also the place where the convicted shoe bomber Richard Reed worshipped. And one of the things that caused a big sensation at this trial in America was when Moussaoui said that he and Reed were supposed to hijack a fifth plane on 9/11 and fly it into the White House. Now, the jury has decided that Moussaoui is eligible for the death penalty because they said he lied, and those lies led to the death of at least one person on 9/11. It's almost a technicality. However, the second phase of this trial is going to begin on Thursday, and that's when some of the relatives, families and survivors will be giving their evidence about the human impact of 9/11. And then this same jury is going to decide whether he faces life imprisonment or the death penalty. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Sue.
OK, let's catch up on the rest of the news. Here's Amanda.
John, thank you. Good morning. Fears of a measles epidemic are growing after an upsurge in cases. A 13-year-old boy has died and a hospital in London has treated 6 nurses for the illness. Rachel Harrison is at Central Middlesex Hospital for us. Rachel, good morning to you.
Yes, good morning, Amanda. Well, any outbreak of measles is a serious one because it is so contagious. But already this year, we've seen 100 cases of measles diagnosed. Compare that to just 77 cases in the whole of 2005. Now, one majority of these cases are with members of the travelling community, including the 13-year-old boy who died. It's the first measles death we've seen in this country since 1992. That said, we had 6 nurses here who were treated for measles after they treated 2 young patients who came in. They were all said to be doing well. They were immediately put into isolation, and certainly the outbreak here has been contained, but we've also seen 8 cases in southwest Scotland, and there are concerns we are facing an epidemic, and this could be the backlash to the MMR jab. The MMR jab, of course, has been linked with autism in the past, and the World Health Organization say that currently in this country we have the lowest immunization rates for measles. At the moment, around 83% of us are actually injecting our children, and really it should be up to around 95%, which is why they're thinking that measles could be here to stay because of the reluctance to vaccinate our children.
Rachel, many thanks. Patients in America have become the first in the world to receive organs grown from their own cells in a lab. 7 people have now had bladders successfully implanted. Scientists in North Carolina have made the breakthrough, which could now lead to the development of organs like hearts and lungs for transplants. The mother of a hit-and-run victim has condemned the sentence handed out to the killer. Jaswinder Singh was given 18 months for killing a medical student in Birmingham. Here's Aruj Dafwecha.
This is the shocking image of 20-year-old Abigail Crane as she lay dead in hospital. Her mother, Susan, took the harrowing decision to release this photo to force the hit-and-run driver who killed her to come forward. Jaswinder Singh was jailed for 18 months at Birmingham Crown Court. Singh had previously been banned from the roads for drink driving. Abigail's mother says the sentence is an insult to her daughter's memory.
This sentence is an insult to her. She's dead and our lives have been desolated.
There are reports this morning that West Midlands Police are so disappointed with the sentence that they plan to write to the Crown Prosecution Service. Singh could be out of jail in 4 months because of the amount of time he's already served in custody.
Storms and tornadoes have killed at least 27 people in America's Midwest. In Arkansas, dozens of people were injured when a tornado hit the northeastern part of the state. The worst damage occurred along a 25-mile swathe of rural Tennessee. Showbiz and Ant and Dec have taken their first steps from the small screen to the big screen. Fans and celebrities turned out at London's Leicester Square last night to cheer them on at the premiere of their first film. Robin Ross was also there.
Let's get ready to rumble! Let's get ready to rumble!
From TV stars to movie stars, the world premiere of Ant and Dec's first film, Alien Autopsy, was out of this world.
I've got to pinch myself really. I'm not quite sure it's happening yet. I'm sure tomorrow I'll reflect and
and it'll all sink in.
The movie is based on the true story of two men who find footage of an apparent alien autopsy. The film gets damaged, so they remake it.
It's not what it looks like. Okay. I can explain everything.
Now, I'm told that aliens have very, very big feet. Not that anyone believes in little green men.
I think Men in Black had it right. They're everywhere and we just don't know it.
I saw in the trees this thing that all I can describe was circular with a sphere thingy down the middle.
I was just chatting to Duncan from Blue and he says he's seen an alien.
Has he? Well, he was in Blue.
Alien Autopsy will be beamed into cinemas nationwide on Friday.
Robin Ross reporting there. Finally, we're always being told that it's good to eat your greens, but Tina Crosby from Essex got the fright of her life when she opened a Tesco bag of broccoli and a snake slithered out. The baby European smooth snake, which is now in quarantine, is usually more partial to insects and small rodents than broccoli. Goodness me. It is 6:35. I'm back with our next news update at 7. Here's John and Gloria.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. Scary. It's a good reason not to eat your greens. Now it's competition time and your chance to get your hands on £10,000. Jenny Faulkner has the details.
Yes, we're giving you the chance to get your hands on a fistful of dollars courtesy of British Airways Holidays. £10,000 could be yours to do with whatever you like. To have a chance of winning, all you have to do is answer this question. Which British actor is the new James Bond? A. Hugh Grant, B. Daniel Craig, C. Colin Firth.
You can dial 09068 100 100. That's 09068 100 100. Or you can text A, B or C as your answer, plus your name and full address to 81149. Or you can enter via the website.
Those lines close at 9 o'clock and the winner will be revealed before the end of the show.
Right now, here's what's happening where you are.
Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News from ITV Granada. First today, the trial of a Liverpool woman charged in connection with the murder of Anthony Walker is due to start this morning. The 18-year-old student was attacked with an ice axe in a park in Huyton last year. Kate Gifford reports.
20-year-old Paul Taylor and 17-year-old Michael Barton, the cousin and brother of Manchester City footballer Joey Barton, were convicted of the racially aggravated murder of Anthony in November and jailed for life. Yesterday, 25-year-old Paul Mawson of Huyton admitted giving Anthony's killers a car within an hour of the axe attack, but he insists he didn't know they'd been involved in a murder. He pleaded guilty to perverting the course of justice at Liverpool Crown Court. 31-year-old Robert Williams admitted conspiracy to assist an offender by booking a hotel room for Barton and Taylor in Amsterdam and then flying there himself to give them cash. Today, 31-year-old Tracy Garner from Kirkdale will go on trial after denying assisting Taylor and Barton in Amsterdam.
A soldier from Liverpool is now preparing to enter the record books as part of the first four-man crew to row across the Northern Atlantic. Lance Corporal Carl Powell is currently training for the race from New York to Falmouth. He'll join up with his 3 colleagues on the 3,000-mile journey in June. While in football, Blackburn and Wigan drew 1-1 in the Premiership last night. Goals came courtesy of Jason Roberts and super sub Shefki Kuki. Meanwhile, Bolton Wanderers play Birmingham tonight, looking for their first league point in 3 games. Boss Sam Allardyce knows it's an important match to keep European football dreams alive.
Certainly with Liverpool after this and Chelsea, we've got to try and make sure that we do get something out of this game, and that makes it a big game for us. Not quite as big, I think, that it is for Steve because of his position, but certainly for us, it's a big game to know whether we can really kick on and try and get this UEFA Cup spot.
Finally this morning, good luck to Lancaster City and Southport, who face each other in tonight's Lancashire FA Trophy final. And this is the goal that got the nationwide north side there. Goalkeeper Anthony McMillan scored from his own half in the 89th minute. They then scored a penalty to book their place in the final. Well, that's it for now. I'll be back at 7:05. Time now for a look at the region's weather.
Take a deep breath and shout down the weather.
Bring it on!
There'll be plenty of sunshine this morning and staying dry. Watch out for patchy cloud and the odd shower, though, through the afternoon. Highs of just 9 Celsius, that's 48 Fahrenheit.
Let's have a look at the front pages now. I will start with the broadsheets. On The Independent, grow your own bladder. Well, this is about the world's first organ grown in a laboratory, and that is set to transform and revolutionise transplant surgery. In the Daily Telegraph, the woes of the Prime Minister continue. Busy Blair stakes claim for 2 more years at number 10, and he is going to be setting out how busy he is to demonstrate that he's not a lame duck and has to stay on for a long time yet. And on the front page of The Times, a poll here. Voters tell Blair it's time to go. Half of most of Britain's voters, in fact, believe that Tony Blair has run out of steam, so he's going to have to get on with being busy pretty soon. But actually, further down the piece, it's interesting. Despite all the loans for peerages, etc., Labour is 1 point up since early March. The Tories down on 34%. John.
Thank you very much indeed. Just looking towards Simon Hughes, I'll be talking to in a minute to see what his reaction to that might be. Let's, meantime, look at the tabloids. Prisons will be full by the summer is their splash, saying that prison population is spiralling out of control and they're going to have to let some people off jail sentences if the situation's to be contained. Most of the other papers concentrate on the tragic story of the little girl who was killed by a hit-and-run driver. An insult to Abigail is a headline in the Daily Mirror, as you can see there in the Sun. 9 months for murder. Now then, let's move on, because today Lord Turner, the author of the pensions report that has, in fact, divided Downing Street and the Treasury, is today expected to defend his call for a more generous state pension funded by higher taxes. And joining me now to discuss that is Simon Hughes, the aforementioned Simon, Lib Dem Shadow Attorney General, and Neil Churchill from Age Concern. Very good morning to you both. There's a piece in the Mail this morning, actually, Neil, saying that more and more pensioners are getting into debt, some of them £50,000 of the debt, having taken out various credit arrangements and deals, and obviously the situation not helped by their pensions. So what do you want to hear from Lord Turner this morning?
Well, I think there's a big challenge that we're facing. As you said, today's pensioners are often struggling to get by. One of the big concerns is about tomorrow's pensioners. We're living longer, but actually we're putting less aside for our retirement. We think the Turner report, published before Christmas, was actually a really important breakthrough in looking afresh at how we fund pensions in the long term.
Pensions linked to wages?
Pensions linked to wages, but I think also a higher state pension paid not by higher taxes, but actually by being able to draw a state pension later in life. They're talking about putting the state pension age up to 67. We've been talking to older people and younger people around the country, and we found a lot of support for these proposals. So we think there is a basis for consensus on moving forward. We just don't know if the government are going to respond.
Lib Dems are a tax-increasing party, aren't they, Simon? So presumably you go along with that?
Well, nobody's a tax-increasing party if they can avoid it, because the reason you gave is still very true. Lots and lots of people in debt. We have a higher level of national personal debt than ever before. £1 trillion plus. We actually have more debt now than we bring in, and pensioners aren't exempt. And you're right, the financial pressures are great. The interesting thing, I think, about what we'll hear today is that the original proposals, which are obviously put forward, and this is, as it were, the response to what people have said, will confirm that the original proposals were going in the right direction. I agree with Neil. I think there's a broad consensus. Firstly, that the basic pension is not high enough. And some people find it very difficult to apply and never do that, so they never make up the gap between the state pension and what they are entitled to. And so £110 a week or whatever, rather than much less than that, and then topping it up with a credit. Secondly, a better state pension, obviously, for couples too. But then an acceptance that there will need to be a second pension which comes from your earnings, where the employer and the state contribute, and that gives you a decent basis for retirement.
Isn't another answer to encourage more people to take out private pensions?
Well, we've been trying to encourage people to take out private pensions, and a lot of people have, I think, but people are lacking a little bit in confidence. We've seen that the saga of Equitable Life. There's also been a significant crash in the value of pension funds in the last 5 years. They're picking up again now.
So there should be
But most people would say they don't really trust the private sector to deliver for them. They want a little bit more certainty, and they certainly want a better deal in pension savings. I think one of the things that Turner did look at very importantly was the situation facing women, because women are penalised for being paid less in the workforce. They're penalised for taking time out to care for parents or bring up children. The system hasn't worked for women, and it's got to be reformed so that it is fair for women.
Politically, the argument, I think everyone would agree with that. Politically, the argument seems to be Gordon Brown on the one hand allegedly saying that the pension credit scheme's working fine, we don't need higher taxes. Tony Blair allegedly perhaps more inclined to increase taxes to fund a bigger pension.
Yes, I think that's the big... There are two political questions. One is who's going to win in the apparent battle between number 10 and number 11, and the news reports this morning suggest that the Prime Minister is determined to go down the... I mean, the consensus is around the Turner proposals, and it's Gordon Brown who is standing firm against them. He's about the only person of any weight or significance who appears to be resisting. And I understand the argument, but it doesn't work, actually, in terms of the share of our national wealth that goes in pensions. If you take the tough choices, if you put up the retirement age, which people accept over a transitional period you need to do, then you can fund it. The second tier question is whether the Tories can support the Turner proposals, but also cut taxes. We don't think they can, but you better ask them about that.
Well, if they were here, we would, but maybe on another occasion we will. Simon, thanks very much indeed. Neil, thanks a lot to you as well.
Good morning. It has just turned 7:15 at the beginning of this year. We brought you important new advice on how to spot the early signs of meningitis. The well-known symptoms are a rash, stiff neck, vomiting and headache, but according to research, the earlier signs of leg pain, cold hands and feet and abnormal skin colour are being missed by GPs and parents. Well, our next guests are testament to this. Jackie Cabler is with the Lofthouse family in Devon. Good morning, Jackie.
Good morning, Gloria. This really is a cautionary tale because most of us just think meningitis equals rash. But this story will show you that the rash can come quite a long time after the meningitis actually starts. Now, this is little Toby. Hello, Toby. If you just take a little look, we don't want to upset him too much, but you can see his legs are very badly scarred. Toby has actually also lost the tips of the toes on this foot, and he's lost all the toes on his other foot. And it's because the meningitis wasn't spotted until some 16 hours after it had actually taken hold. Now, Mum Sarah, it just started off, didn't it, with cold hands and feet, which you know now is a sign, but most people don't know that. And what happened after you felt his hands and feet were cold?
Well, I didn't really think much of it to start with. Just gave him an extra blanket. It wasn't until about 20 minutes later when he was stirring again and I got him into bed with me when he was violently sick.
Which again we know is another sign, projectile vomiting.
Yeah.
And then his temperature went up, but again nobody really thought anything much of it, just thought maybe he had a bug.
Well, no, we didn't. We did ring the doctor, we were a little bit worried, but kids don't like high temperatures, so they weren't overly worried over on the phone.
And he also didn't really like people touching him, which was another sign.
Yeah, we realised afterwards.
And it wasn't until the next day, so he sort of got through the night and he was, you know, not great, but not terribly ill. And then the next day, it was 16 hours later, you suddenly saw the first signs of a rash.
Yeah.
That must have terrified you.
Yeah.
So what happened then? You basically rushed him to hospital?
Well, yeah, I phoned an ambulance straight away.
And then, basically, he was fighting for his life, wasn't he? What was that like for you?
It's crazy.
Terrible, frightening stuff. And was there a point where you thought you might lose him?
Yeah, all the way through.
And I know...
put it to the back of my head, but... especially the first day was the worst, but yeah, there was always that because of all the injuries and stuff that he could have got infections and things like that as well.
Now, obviously, he has lost toes and he's got this scarring, but you must be so grateful to have him here.
Yeah, he's still Toby, so...
Exactly, he's gorgeous and he will be able to walk. He's just going to take a little time to balance on those little feet, isn't he? So it's great news. Good boy, Toby, well done. As you can see, the rash, in this case, took 16 hours to appear, and in the meantime, poor Toby's been left like this, so it really is important to look for those earlier symptoms.
Jackie, thank you very much. Well, Hilary joins us again now. Hilary, this rash that we're always told to look out for, sometimes it's not there.
No, it's only there in about 50% of cases. I mean, it's a very visual rash when it appears and it's unmistakable and it's a very important sign when you see it, but no one should wait for that. It's only one sign amongst many for septicemia, which is the blood poisoning that often accompanies meningitis. Toby, you know, lovely little boy and really lucky to be alive because his symptoms occurred and weren't spotted straight away. Meningitis is difficult to diagnose, there's no question about it, and it's really important for parents to be vigilant and to trust their instincts. If they really think something is wrong with their child, as they know their child better than anybody else, it's really important to say to the doctor, look, I suspect this could be meningitis, how do you know it isn't, and what are you going to do? And put the doctor on the spot a little bit, because you know, you've got to act quickly. The other signs, the early signs are really important, and we looked at those earlier this year, and the early signs to look for are pains in the legs. That's an important one. Another one is a sort of pale, blotchy skin. And the third one would be perishing cold. Perishing cold, hands and feet particularly. These are the earliest signs and symptoms you will get with septicemia. And the other ones, the classic ones, which we've sort of looked at already, would be a high fever, headache, neck stiffness, dislike of bright lights, vomiting, joint pains, and in babies who can't complain of things like headache, a dislike of being handled, a high-pitched cry, these kind of symptoms. So you look for the whole lot. You won't get all of them, you won't get just one of them, but you look at the pattern, and if you've got any suspicions, you get help straight away. That's the important message. Don't wait for the rash. If you see the rash, even more urgent, because that's a late sign, and it's an unmistakable sign. But look for all those other symptoms, and if you're worried, you just go and get help.
Hilary, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Gloria.
And you can get a comprehensive guide to meningitis, including advice about spotting those early signs on our website. That's gm.tv.
Time right now coming up to 10 to 7. You're watching the News Hour here on GMTV, and these are the headlines you're waking up to this morning. Zacharias Moussaoui, the only person to be charged in America over the September the 11th attacks, is one step closer to the death penalty this morning.
There are fears that a measles epidemic could be on the way as the number of cases of the disease soars.
And storms and tornadoes have killed at least 27 people in America's Midwest. Now then, let me tell you an amazing story, an incredible story almost. This is Deezer, a 4-month-old Staffordshire Bull Terrier pup. A few weeks ago, she managed, believe it or not, to swallow a 10.5-inch tent peg. That's a picture of her in this morning's Daily Mail, and there you can see the tent peg that she actually swallowed. We had hoped to have it with us here this morning, but I don't know where it is, but we'll find out in just a tick. But that's where it was. It was in her stomach. How on earth did a dog manage to swallow a tent peg like that? Well, here Deezer is, as you can see, with her owner, Peter Jones. Lived to tell the tale, remarkable.
Yeah.
How did you find out she'd done this?
Well, she'd been outside and came in and she started being sick. And we thought I'd just got an upset stomach. So, like, throughout night she got worse. Then we had to take her to PDSA, veterinary surgeon, and x-rayed her and saw this. What did the vet say? Was it a he or a she, the vet? A she. What did she say when she realised what this dog had done? She just couldn't believe it. I mean, it's just to reiterate, I'm not trying to make too much of this, but it is astonishing. I've got a ruler. We didn't have the tent peg, but we've got a ruler. Where is the tent peg, by the way? The PDSA have still got it. Oh, I see. It's a memento, is it? Yeah. That is what she swallowed. I mean, it is quite astonishing. From my finger to my thumb, how on earth it got down her throat and how she digested that. Yeah? Yeah. Well, we've got the X-ray pictures, I think. Let's just have a look at those now. Or what? There it is, inside her stomach. I presume, I mean, I'm guessing, I'm not a dog expert, I haven't got dogs, I've got cats, but I mean, because dogs really sort of woof their food, don't they? I say woof, that's not a word I mean, but you know what I mean? They gobble up the food very quickly, don't they? Presumably that assisted it down inside. And is there any sort of damage? I mean... No, none at all. None at all. How long was she in there with the vet? They kept her in for 2 days, like, and she came out and she's been fine since. But you won't be taking her camping? No, definitely not. How old is she now? 5 months. 5 months old? Yeah. Staggering, actually. And she's fit as a fiddle, running around? Yeah, she's still not learned to listen. Really? Yeah. Well, it's still a very inquisitive animal, is she? Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah. I presume that's it, because they sort of test things out with their nose and their mouth, I'm told. Yeah. Often. But you know, normally you would think that a dog would reject something metal like that. But this one didn't. No. Staggering. Well, it's a great story. Lovely to see the two of you here, and she in such good shape. Thanks very much, Steve, for being with us. Right, thanks a lot.
Right, what have you got in the papers there, by the way?
Oh, I've just spotted the lovely Colleen, who had a birthday bash, and she looks lovely. The tabloids have slightly changed their attitude to her, that she's now the darling of,
is she?
of the tabloids. But they are taking the mickey out of her friends, calling them wagonette of friends arriving at the bash, which is very cross.
Let's have a look at the picture. Just show them the picture. Just turn it around that way so people can see. That's right. The friends. I see. So they're not doing...
Have your cake and eat it, Col.
Equally in the... Well, not equally. In the Daily Mail, very interesting story. I've been to this house. This is Ken Russell, the film director's house. And Ken, who's no chicken, he wouldn't mind me saying that, apparently came home to see his house on fire, feared that his wife, also I went down there to interview him, was inside, and ran in there twice to try and rescue her, not realising that she'd actually already escaped, believe it or not, nude, because she was in the bath when the fire started. But a very, very, very brave man, Ken Russell, and lucky, like our friend Deezer here, lucky to survive. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. That's just about it from the two of us. Ben and Penny up next with GMTV Today, with a performance from the amazing Mary J. Blige.
And that's after the latest weather picture from Andrea.